All right, welcome back. I want to get you the very latest with regards to a breaking news story this morning. The Electoral Act 73 of 1998 declared unconstitutional, well, part of it as it extends to the independent candidates. Let's get some reaction from Natasha Phiri, who is at the Constitutional Court. Natasha, good morning to you. Reaction, please.
Well, very good morning to you, Blaine. As you can see behind me, people are very happy, more especially the members and the leaders of the National New Movement, quite elated, quite happy about the judgment there. And of course, let's just speak to them themselves. I mean, Bulelani, how are you feeling? You were quite optimistic that, the judge would actually rule in your favor.
Well, we're quite excited because we really believe that what was started in 1994, there were pieces that were missing, and we believe that today some of those pieces have been put together, and we can really build on a democracy that everyone can be proud of.
Let's just also get more reactions here from a lady who also brought this matter forward. How are you feeling? Finally, you've won your fight.
Yes, finally, and today, actually, for the first time, I can say I'm proud as South African. It feels like I'm being heard for the first time and not being oppressed. So that's how much this means to me. And a togetherness, the Ubuntu, finally applying. And not just in word, but in deed as well. So I'm ecstatic. Thank you.
I'll just ask a familiar face to also step forward, perhaps. I mean, Musi, you're a former political party leader. You've got your own movement now, the Movement for One SA. How are you feeling? This is a historic moment for South Africans.
It is a historic moment indeed, because finally it gives effect to what democracy is. It is a historic moment indeed because it defeats state capture that is born out of party capture. Because when people capture a party, they capture the state, and corruption is the natural outcome out of that. Lastly, it is an opportunity for all South Africans now to stand and be able to say, we will stand for our people as individuals and bring change to our nation. And ultimately, it is democracy by the people and for the people, not democracy for the parties. It is a victory for democracy, for our constitution, and for future generations in our nation.
Let's bring in another familiar face, the leader of COPE. Quite surprising to see you here. What does this now mean for political parties? I mean, Parliament has 24 months to actually amend the Electoral Act.
Well, what it really means is that what we dreamt about within the confines of Robben Island and other prisons of this country is now being given effect by the Constitutional Court. The words written into the Constitution, Section 19, without them being implemented as the court has now ruled, we would not have been able to achieve, the people of this country would not have been able to achieve what they had otherwise won under the leadership of President Mandela. We are now here. We can say now with confidence that whatever else may have gone wrong, the people of this country with full political power in their hands will be able to correct that, will be able to set our country on a good course, and South Africa and South Africans will make this the best nation around the world. Thank you.
So now, does this then mean, the politics of the country will then change?
They have to radically change.
Yes.
Because no longer now do we get dictated by one party or two parties. Citizens can stand up. And this is the change that generations who went to Robben Island fought for. This is a change that future generations now will stand for, when individuals in this country can not only express their right as to who they want to elect, but can stand for public office. Our politics will change from henceforth, 24 months, and I believe this will bring change to our country.
Come the next elections, will you be standing?
We have to bring change to this country. And all the citizens who are here, this is a very important question, because all the citizens who are here have then been given the right to stand as individuals. And I'm calling upon all individuals in this country who want to represent their communities, their cities, their towns, their municipalities. Let them stand. Because when they do that, they can represent the people. And now ultimately, they don't need to be a part of a political party to do that. They can be men of integrity and women of integrity, people who will represent the values of this country and drive forward. That's why we stand as one South Africa, and that's the victory we've been looking for. And I congratulate the New Nation movement. I congratulate the people of this country, because finally democracy is back in their hands. Gone are the Tsotsis.
Democracy back in their hands. Let me just bring forth the gentleman that I spoke to earlier on. I mean, Ben, we spoke about the issue of accountability. So finally what you wanted is, has now been granted by the courts. But yet again, how do you ensure that that one independent candidate is credible, is actually known by the people of South Africa, and actually stands for the rights of the people of South Africa?
Yes, I think that's why also Bulelani has said we understand that this is not a silver bullet, but at least it opens the playing field. It allows us to go there. It allows us to start in getting involved at that level. So we understand that there's a lot of work. The work starts now. The work starts now. And in terms of active citizenry, we need to take back the power. We need to become those very people that we want in those places.
And maybe to add on to that, the work has actually started, because if you remember last year we hosted dialogues around the subject, because we understood that at the end of the day, having individuals stand alone is not going to reform the entire system. We began the conversations, including, experts that were part of the initial electoral, the electoral task team, people that have contributed. So this is, justice and the work that was done, and that investment that was done, led by Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert, finally can find expression, because a whole lot of work was done. So we are excited, and we will continue this conversation, bringing around everybody. And I think, like it was said, it's now in our hands. It's come back to us as individuals to begin to take back our power. And I think now that slogan will find expression: the people shall govern.
Just finally, maybe from the New Nation movement, so I suppose the movement will then be standing for election, Bulala, and you will be standing for the next election.
Well, if the people in my community want me to stand, I will definitely stand. But what we are certain of is that the campaign of take responsibility, take ownership of your community, Vuka Mhlali, Tsuka Africa, is starting now.
I also see another familiar face, the former MMC of Finance in the city of Johannesburg, Funzi Gubeni. If you'll just kindly join us, and I'll just ask my colleagues to also maintain social distancing. I know it is very hard here, but we have to adhere to the rules and regulations that government has set. Funzi, quite an historic moment. How are you feeling, your sentiments?
Look, this confirms what we actually heard from the South Africans. If you remember, as the People's Dialogue under the fondant at Hemen Mashaba, we ran a process where we consulted with communities, asking them what type of South Africa do they want. And out of that discussion, one of the values that came out of it was electoral reform. And people were saying we want to elect our own leaders. We are tired of a situation where parties are the ones that dictate to us which leader must come and lead us. But they also went further and said, these leaders, once we elect them, we also want to hold them accountable, because political parties are unable to do that. So that is why, if you look at our values that are guiding us as the People's Dialogue, electoral reform was part of it. So we want to congratulate the parties that are here, that have fought this battle, and they've won today. And I think this victory is not only for them, they will say it's also for South Africans. So we want to congratulate them and congratulate South Africans and say, let's take this freedom in our hands and make sure that we take South Africa forward.
Talking about South Africans, the local government elections are coming up next year. What does this then mean for 2021, the 2021 local government elections?
Look, the way I understand it, the judge said this is suspended for 24 months. Parliament has to be given time to actually correct the Electoral Act, and it means it doesn't affect the local government elections that are coming. I know that the ANC will want local government to be postponed, but this doesn't give them a room to do so. We'll go to 2024 national elections with these changes, and I think people will be able to elect properly their leadership. Currently, we are able to elect, obviously, your ward councillor, but it's very important that we must be able to hold them accountable once we have elected them, and this gives effect to that. Thank you so much.
Talking about the 2024 national elections, do you then think that the ANC won't actually have its power anymore?
Absolutely. The ANC is going to... I think that this judgment has put the ANC on notice that you cannot just run amok with this nation any longer. So absolutely, it gives them not only notice, but it also has now given the people the power back. So now the people has taken their power back, and the people can now put in political office accountable leaders that can account to the people and make sure that we don't have these runarounds and rogue elements that we currently have. And I also think it's important for people where I come from, because I represent those people whose voices have been suppressed, the voices of the First Nation of this country. And when we got into the New Nation movement, that was one of the first conversations that we had, that there's a people in this country whose voices are being suppressed, and the current electoral system does not allow those voices to be expressed. And so therefore it's also a victory for justice for the First Nation people who's been crying out loudly, that we are being suppressed and oppressed even within a democratic space.
One point which we must make to the ANC, to the government, to everybody, the fact that the Constitutional Court has suspended this up to 24 months does not mean we must wait for the end of 24 months.
Absolutely, yes.
As soon as amendments can be done,
Yes.
and can be adopted by Parliament, the day that they are done, we are free to implement.
Absolutely.
We don't have to wait for 24 months to finish.
One of the things also I think we must remember is not just about the ANC. This weakness is a systemic weakness that even the DA suffered. So we need to, I think we must see it. Any political party that would have won elections would have fallen into this weakness. So all of us, and if even the people in the political parties, must actually recognize this as a way of freeing themselves, because some of them got captured in the process. So it's an opportunity for every one of us who love South Africa to begin to actually contribute towards building a better country for all of us.
I think what you will equally see is the fact that the new draft electoral amendment law is already been promulgated, will be circulated through the corridors of Parliament to make sure that it appropriately recognizes how individuals can stand, what is the definition of a constituency, etc. How does it make sure that every vote in fact does count as given expression in the Constitution? That ultimately, when you give effect to the judgment, it will have significant changes across how we elect leadership going forward. So I certainly think that without doubt the work has just begun. Yep. The 24-month period will require that there's actually good contestations. And I think the invitation from this judgment today says to South Africans, also make your submissions as to what type of electoral system you exactly want to see, because that is going to be a contested terrain. But what we now do know is that the power has been handed back to the people, which is the power behind the judgment. Now we have to find the electoral system that articulates that not gives power to parties but also to individuals. So the power is coming back.
Yep. Yes. And I would just like to add, and with my First Nation brother, for the first time actually the inequality of, we were never recognized politically at all. There was never a place. We always the in-betweens. So with this judgment, I believe that we are put as South Africans on an equal footing, and we have a fresh start, and we can finally bury the hatred, the racial hatred, because of past hurts. So this for us as a First Nation is also a fresh start, equal, no more the one above the other, and we can finally work towards healing for South Africa.
Amandla!
Thank you so much. Well, there you've heard it from my guests. History in the making, a momentous occasion for them, and in their words saying that, the courts have given power back to the people of South Africa. If you've just joined us on the SABC, the Electoral Act has been, declared as unconstitutional, and Parliament has 24 months to actually actually amended. Blaine, I neither want to add or subtract to what my guests have to say. South Africans, you be the judge. And with that said, it's back to you in studio.
The politics of South Africa will have to radically change, says Musi Maimane. As you've mentioned, Natasha, the operation of this judgment has been suspended for 24 months. A lot of work needs to be done in that time. More reaction we're going to get throughout the course of today. So stay tuned for that. We're going to take a quick break. More news
Cool.
next.
Thanks, guys.